This video is brought to you by Skillshare. It seems like it was just yesterday that we paid tribute to all the fallen Autobots who met their untimely end in some of the saddest scenes in the Bay films. The chilling hand of death doesn't necessarily play favorites with robots from either faction, but I can't help but notice that the baddies meet their demise more brutally than the good guys.
I got the leg! And his fat head. Don't get any better than that.
What's up guys, RBG here bringing you another top 10 Transformers video. This is something where we take the best and worst elements of the live action films and comprise them in the top 10 rankings. Since we did a video ranking the saddest Autobot deaths, it was only right that we did a top 10 list highlighting the most brutal Decepticon deaths. Like, we gotta be honest here, the Decepticons for the most part are the cannon fodder of these films. Other than the main bosses, the Decepticons are just there to show how they can get decimated in the sickest ways possible. And I think it's for the best, because these guys are scumbags who get what they deserve. Like, when I see a being filled with life suffering, my sympathetic bones usually activate, but there's just something satisfying about a psychotic killing machine getting their comeuppance, especially if it means making our favorite Autobots look cool. While the deaths are brutal, they are some of the most creative forms of art. This is where Michael Bay excels. So what do you say we start this countdown on some of our favorite brutal Decepticon deaths? Coming in at number 10, we have Alice. The epitome of Michael Bay's masturbatory obsession, Alice was the new hottie on campus who was secretly disguised as a killer robot hell-bent on violating Sam. Once she discovered that Sam had a special knack for writing in cyberglyphics, she had her eyes dead set on him. She uses her super pretender skills to seduce Sam, but Bumblebee comes in with a quick save by dousing her in antifreeze. You'd think she'd give up after this, but she remains persistent in her mission. After she completely curves Leo, she makes her way into Sam's room to get a little more hands-on in her approach. She forces him onto the bed and began probing his oral region with her tongue. Meanwhile, an entirely different probing appendage snaked out from beneath her skirt, but she stealthily retracts the tentacle when Michaela bursts in the room, and she waits until the humans leave, and that's when she really gets her freak on. She licks her tongue out and wraps it around Sam's neck. Thankfully, Michaela was able to look past his simpish ways and save him. After a chaotic chase, we saw what the evil pretender was truly hiding under that sexy exterior, a hardened and spiky thing of nightmares. Unfortunately, Alice's true form wasn't enough to help her survive her brutal end. She was rammed into a light post, and to add insult to an already fatal injury, she was grinding under her target's tires as they made their escape. Number 9. Scrap Metal. As if it wasn't already obvious that Decepticons aren't the most trustworthy faction around. I mean, the name Decepticon should instantly give that part away. They spit all over the freedom should be the right of all sentient beings philosophy, and they manipulate anyone to achieve their goals. And when I say anyone, I really do mean they will use anyone, even those within their own camp. This was made clear when a group of Constructicons decided that sacrifices needed to be made to restore their master. Unfortunately, by way of overall stature, Scrap Metal learned this lesson the hard way. After him, his fellow Constructicons and Ravage discovered the remains of Megatron, the Doctor declared that he would need some parts to replace the ones destroyed in the Battle of Mission City, and he ordered the death of the smallest Constructicon. Before Scrap Metal could speak his piece, he was jumped by Longhaul and Mixmaster and beaten to death as they tore off the components needed to restore Megatron. Not only was his death brutal, but it was a little sad because you can hear the pain in his voice as he gets ripped apart. Taking the 8th spot is Starscream. This guy has had his fair share of deaths in the various Transformers lore. He's arguably one of the best Decepticons who could potentially be the best leader of the faction, but his arrogance always gets in the way of that and ultimately leads to its demise. A prime example of this can be seen in Transformers Dark of the Moon. During a scene where he literally had the upper hand over Sam, Starscream thought it'd be a good idea to relish in the moment by playing with him instead of ending his life. However, Sam had a grappling hook from Q on his hand and fired it into Starscream's optic, partially and painfully blinding him. He tried to get the annoying fleshling off his eyeball by flailing in the air, but he only made matters worse. As he struggled to do away with Sam and nearby soldiers, Sam jumped on his shoulder and stabbed a boomstick into his remaining eyeball, fully blinding him. And this is where Starscream really loses it. As he swore to kill the humans, the boomstick went off, blowing his head clean off his shoulders. His lifeless body fell to the ground in pieces. Talk about a brutal and funny way to go out. Coming in at lucky number 7, we have Sentinel Prime. Now, admittedly, I was a bit apprehensive about putting this guy on this list because based on his motivations, he's neither an Autobot nor a Decepticon. He's a Prime looking to preserve his Transformer race by any means necessary. But since he aligned himself with the Decepticons, I just had to look at him as such and add him on the list. I mean, he did meet his end at the hands of an Autobot, and it was one of the more brutal deaths in Transformers Dark of the Moon. Sentinel was literally on the verge of taking control of everything by slaying his former pupil Optimus Prime. Just before he could deliver the killing blow, however, he came under attack from Megatron, who had realized that the threat Sentinel posed to his leadership and decided to once again take his rightful place at the top of the command chain. He pleaded for mercy, claiming all he ever wanted was the survival of their race. But Robo-Jesus was all out of mercy, and as his master continued to beg for his life, he was met with a double tap from Megatron's fusion shotgun. One shot to the back and another one to his head for good measures. Number 6. Ravage. Ravage is one of my favorite Decepticon minions in the Bay films. Like as soon as he was ejected from Soundwave, he hit the ground running. On his mission to retrieve the Allspark Sliver, we saw that he can be as deadly as he is stealthy. Knocking several sensors offline, he effortlessly broke into a tightly secured base and then proceeded to vomit a large quantity of small metallic spheres down a ventilation shaft. Once inside the base, the spheres transformed and combined into Reedman, who successfully stole the shard and returned to the surface to reunite with Ravage. As the human soldiers attempted to stop Reedman, Ravage provided cover fire, killing several humans in the process. The pair then made their escape. Later on, he joined the other Decepticons in searching for Sam Witwicky and the Matrix of Leadership amid some Egyptian ruins. He managed to get the drop on Bumblebee, clawing off part of his battle helmet. But B was able to return a favor by tearing out Ravage's own goo-covered spine and then used the same spine to slap the hell out of Rampage. Capping things off at number 5 is Bone Crusher. I just had to throw this one in the top 5 because it was our first example of Optimus Prime being a complete savage. When I went into the first Transformers movie, I knew there would be a lot of killing and energon bloodshed, but my mind didn't prepare me for this scene. During one of the most epic chase sequences I've ever seen in a live action film, we saw Bone Crusher transform while still moving and skating towards the Autobots as he wrecked everything in front of him. Optimus Prime transformed and slid into position to block him, but he tackled Prime, pushing him off the overpass, tumbling and falling off the edge, dragging the Autobot leader down with him. Once they landed, he sucker punched Robo-Jesus, who then hit him back so hard one of his Decepticon optics popped free from its socket, while all the while being observed by a little kid in an SUV who thought the entire experience was cool. The two played a little cat and mouse along the overpass. Once they land, Bone Crusher swung his claw wildly at the Autobot, all the while screaming incoherently. This gave Optimus Prime the perfect opportunity he needed to get his swords ready, which the Autobot leader used to cleave off Bone Crusher's right arm and run through the Decepticon's neck. I know he had no other choice, but it was just downright brutal that he did my boy like that. Scooping in at number 4 is Grindor. Grindor was a massive hulking Decepticon who, like most henchmen, was loyal to Megatron. When he isn't getting confused with his smaller buddy Blackout, he's strategizing a way to get the drop on his Autobot ops. Except for that one bot. Yeah, that one didn't go over so well. He joined both Megatron and Starscream in the forest hunting Sam. They didn't count on Optimus Prime being present with the boy, and the trio began to fight the Autobot leader. And Grindor wasn't treated too well by Optimus, who used his blade to slice off of one of Grindor's arms and slashed it into his chest. He fell back for a bit but rejoined the fight, only for Optimus to jump on top of him and use his hooks to rip off his face. Prime then jumped down, pulling the corpse of Grindor down with him while talking trash. Number 3. The Fallen. Formerly known as Megatronus, the Fallen was the OG Decepticon leader. Like, this guy literally wrote the Decepticon Bible. After his ambitions grew to a point of irreversible evil, his brothers turned their back on him and hid the Matrix of Leadership from his reach, eventually hiding it on Earth. Fast forward millions of years later, he discovers that the Cube could provide him with the info he needs to fulfill his original goal. But before he can continue where he left off, he had to tie up some loose ends, which includes killing the only threat that could once again thwart his plans, that being Optimus Prime. Because only a Prime can defeat another Prime. Since Optimus would protect Sam Witwicky, the Fallen ordered Megatron to capture the boy and draw Prime out. And Megatron's mission was partially successful, although Sam escaped. Optimus came to defend him and died in the process. The Fallen sensed his death and was very pleased, knowing that the time to strike was now. But sadly, his brief time as the only Prime standing would come to an end after Optimus was revived by Sam using the Matrix and given killer upgrades via Jetfire. During the climax of their scuffle, Optimus eventually managed to impale the Fallen through the shoulder with his own spear, and then demanded his face, pulling the spear back, ripping off the Fallen's face, causing the Decepticon leader to roar in pain. As he attempted to escape, Big Blue delivered his final blow by ramming his fist through the Fallen's chest and crushed his Allspark. Eyeing that number 2 spot, we have Shockwave. the cold and peerless Decepticon scientist who has a knack for killing. It's been said that this version of the character is the only Decepticon who could defeat Megatron in combat. I mean, look at him. He looks like he's armored to the gills and nothing can penetrate his super dense shell. Even if someone could, they'd have to get past his pet driller first. During the big battle of Chicago, we witnessed him cause what I consider the most collateral damage of all the Bay films. Like, the amount of destruction he does with his driller is insane. When Optimus Prime and the Autobots infiltrated the Decepticon-occupied city, Shockwave and his driller emerged from beneath the convoy of Autobots, and the driller separated Optimus from his trailer. Shockwave then left the driller and proceeded to track down the rest of the Autobots. However, he felt himself disorientated by a parachute from one of the human soldiers. His eye was then shot out, causing it to dangle by its wires. Optimus Prime then came charging back into the battle, and when Shockwave fired at him, the Autobot leader dodged the shot and punched Shockwave with a spiked fist, shattering his abdomen. This devastating attack didn't completely put him down, but the Falcon Punch from the Prime did. He then followed it up by tearing Shockwave's dangling eye out through his throat. Man, these Decepticons should have really taken notes on how to survive a battle with the Autobots. If you're gonna partake in anything, you should at least try to perfect your craft, right? That's why Skillshare is the best place to do this. I often find myself being overwhelmed when I'm asked how to become a successful online creator. Like, there's so much to put into words or a video that I probably couldn't give you the sound advice you need to kick off your journey. I don't think any tutorial on YouTube could, for that matter. Thankfully, Skillshare has me covered. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people, where you can explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in creativity. While this channel has amassed a pretty substantial following, there's still room for improvement. One of the classes that I've found best suits me is the Stand Out on YouTube and Build a Successful Channel, taught by the popular YouTuber Jazza. This guy has literally cracked the code and made me see things in a different light than I ever have before. From setting your channel up for success to getting the best out of your AdSense, he shows you how to do it all. It's curated specifically for learning, which means you don't have to deal with ads. And they're always launching new premium classes, so you can stay focused and follow wherever your creativity takes you. And it's less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. So join the millions, including myself, in learning on Skillshare today. All you gotta do is click the link in the description, and the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click on it will get a free trial of premium membership so you can explore your creativity. You can start today by going to skl.sh/randomblackgamer12201. But with all that said, let's find out what poor sap met their most brutal end in the Transformers films. Number 1. Megatron. Arguably the most polarizing character in the Bay films, this guy has seen his fair share of L's. It just seems like for whatever reason the story writers couldn't figure out what to do with the guy after the first installment. But I guess it was for the best because he was able to skate by with his life at the end of each film. That's until he met his brutal end at the hand of his arch nemesis Optimus Prime. This instance has to be one of the most ironic moments in Transformers movie history because for the longest time Optimus has always been trying to call a truce with Megatron, but Megatron wasn't having it. In the end, there's no other command but his, and you're gonna do what he says. So it was funny that when he actually did want to call a truce with the Autobot leader, it totally backfired on him. Optimus maybe felt some type of way when Megs asked what he would do without him, because he answered that question by jabbing his Energon axe right into his face and tearing his head from his shoulders. I don't know why Megatron would even ask a question like this knowing that Robo Jesus was at the end of his rope. I guess he had to learn the hard way. But with that, I'm going to conclude this top 10 list of the brutal Decepticon deaths. As I mentioned earlier, we already did a video regarding the saddest Autobot deaths, so it was only right that we talk about the deaths from the opposing side. If you think I missed some that were more brutal than the ones in this video, let me know. Or better yet, comment your top 10 brutal Decepticon deaths. And if you made it all the way to the end of the video, I asked you for all your comments up with the hashtag BrutalEnd. As always, I asked you to like or dislike the video. It doesn't have to be a thumbs up, it can be a thumbs down. Any feedback is good feedback and will only help me improve on future videos. But if you really enjoyed the video, it would help me out tremendously if you shared it with all your friends and followers on social media. Sharing really makes a difference. But once again, this is your boy RBG signing out on another video. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.